Thanks for joining the webinar today between cPacket and the Tolly group, talking about the recently released Tolly test report. And it's really exciting and certainly my pleasure to be able to welcome Kevin Tolly to the webinar today. Kevin, it's great to have you here, and I hope you're doing okay.
Yep, thanks, Ian. Thanks for having me. Good stuff. Okay, so let me take it from here and get started here. So thanks, everyone, for joining us today. As Ian said, my name is Kevin Tolly, and I am the founder of the Tolly Group, and will be presenting today on behalf of my team. So our topic today is high-speed lossless packet capture to disk, or CTD, as you see in our title there. Specifically, I will be reviewing benchmark testing conducted by Tolly of the cPacket network's cStor 100S packet capture and analysis observability node. This solution provides for high-performance packet capture that can keep up with today's 100 gigabit Ethernet networks. The project was conducted by Tolly in April 2023 and commissioned by cPacket Networks. The full results can be found in Tolly report number 223119, which is available free of charge from both Tolly and from cPacket Network. So on to the next slide. Let's start looking at the tests. So network accountability requires network observability. So whether the focus is reducing service outages, improving compliance, isolating security threats, or accelerating incident response, it is essential to be able to store and replay network traffic. So network accountability requires the focus on reducing service outages and making sure that you have complete capability to look whenever you need it at whatever existing traffic is in your network. So the goal of this test was to benchmark the multiple capture to disk scenarios. First, baseline performance. Second, performance with analytics enabled. And third, packet download during capture. And for packet search and download during capture. So we'll go through each of these. Tests were run on both the base 288 terabyte 4U system alone, and then augmented by the 4RU cPacket extensible storage, or CES system, as you'll see it referred to in the report, for a total capacity of 2 petabytes, and with both 40 and 100 gigabit Ethernet network interfaces. So next slide, please. So in summary, we have some findings here. So in our full Tolly report, you will find all of the graphics that I'm presenting in this webinar. Our results are summarized in the test highlights graphic on your screen. I'll comment on each of these areas in the next few slides, but in a nutshell, we demonstrated and verified zero loss capture across a range of network interfaces and traffic loads with analytics disabled and enabled. In addition, we demonstrated the cPacket solution could download raw packets while capturing with zero loss, and that we could in fact search for specific packet content, again, while a high rate of capture was in progress. Let's move to the next slide. So this table covers points 1 and 2 from the prior slide. A lot of information here, but this matrix can be summed up very simply. At all traffic loads with either 40 gig Ethernet or 100 gig Ethernet interfaces with 20,000 or 10 million unique IP endpoints and flows, the cPacket cStor 100S captured every packet and dropped no packets. At full rate, that was a sustained rate of 33.4 million packets per second. In the middle of the matrix, you will see that tests were also run with the analytics on, with analytics enabled. We'll hear more about this feature later, but we can note now that processing 20,000 unique IP flows and simulated endpoints, the cStor 100S was able to capture a sustained load of 60.5 gigabits per second across the two interfaces, which is 20.2 million packets per second with analytics enabled. So next slide, please. So this slide, again, you'll find it in our report, summarizes what we saw during each and every test. So the left pane shows captured traffic, the right pane shows packet drops. So there were 0 packets dropped across all the tests. So that panel on the right always showed 0, which is what we wanted. The left pane matched the capture rate, which varied as noted across the different tests, which were run at different capture rates. This particular example shows the system capturing 100 gigabits of traffic across 2 interfaces after running, as you'll see if you look very closely, for about 40 minutes. Lots of packets for sure. Okay. Next slide, please. So as I noted earlier, we also ran tests with the analytics feature enabled. This feature works in conjunction with the cPacket network's cClear analysis system. cClear is an optional component and not required. So using cClear, as illustrated in this example, the system operator can learn more about the network characteristics of the traffic in real time as the capture is taking place. Pretty powerful stuff. So for this particular test, traffic was generated tagged with different VLANs. As you can see, each VLAN is mapped out and color-coded, and as can be seen partially at the bottom of the screen, there's network details provided for each stream, showing things like number of bytes, flows, packets, fragments, throughputs, and so forth. So there's more, but this is all we could capture on one screenshot. So for times when one needs a very detailed look at individual packets, we have even more than this. We have packet capture, which we'll look at on this next slide. So while capturing traffic at 95 gigabits per second, we left a little bit of space to insert our traffic with 0 packet loss. Engineers ran several additional scenarios involving search and download. So testers injected packets with specific content into the overall traffic stream while the capture was running. So while 95 gig was being captured, we added some additional traffic in that we would then go and hunt for as part of this test. So then testers ran a real-time search, so while capture was still in progress, to find the packets that matched the content. So this could be very useful when trying to gather forensic information on an attack associated with, say, a given IP or specific MAC address. Okay, and then this illustration shows both aspects of it, which we'll get to. So the packets identified by the search were then downloaded from the cStor 100S for further analysis. Because the cStor 100S exports the data in standard PCAP format used by all network analyzers, it is suitable for use immediately in standard packet analysis tools such as Wireshark. So after the download, engineers opened the file directly in Wireshark where the data was recognized and displayed. Now let's look at the screen a little bit. The upper part of the screen shows the download script activity to pull the search down. The lower part of the screen illustrates the data as displayed by Wireshark without any further processing needed. So directly from the cStor 100 download directly into Wireshark or any other standard network analysis tool. Very powerful. So the cStor 100S is a very powerful system, as we've seen, that can provide not only the high-level information about the traffic, but every single packet that you might need to examine is available in full as well. Next slide, please. So I highly recommend that you read our full report, and you can get a copy of our Tolly report for all the details of the test methodologies, configurations, and other relevant information. As noted earlier, the report is available from Tolly and from cPacket Networks at no charge. So with that, I will hand the session back over to Ian.
Thanks, Kevin. Really appreciate the walking through the report. Just give me 1 second. I'll flip over to a couple of other slides that I thought would be useful to walk through as part of this particular session. Just give me 1 second. Here we go. It's going to be very exciting. Here we go. Okay, great. As I said, Kevin, thanks very much for you and the team's efforts in terms of working with our engineers to be able to build out the test report and then be able to walk through it and document it so clearly, as I'm sure many of us over the years have appreciated the numerous Tolly reports that have been completed. But I suppose the question really that you have to ask myself, or you have to ask cPacket, is kind of why? Why the cStor S? Why did we want to go and take the time and the investment to dig into this particular platform? Well, that's what I'm hopefully going to try and explain in the next few slides during this webinar. I think the key thing really, and actually Kevin alluded to this in his commentary, actually, it's about the packets. Once again, networks are getting ever faster. They're getting ever more complicated in their own way. They're getting ever more hybrid in the sense of spanning not only the traditional data center or the colo, and often now virtual, as well as huge amounts of cloud infrastructure, all bringing together numerous applications that our customers are running to be able to enable their customers to be successful. So when cPacket started, we started with the data. We started with the data at the bottom of this triangle, so to speak, in this kind of yellowy mustard color. I'm not sure exactly what color that is, but anyway. And the point being is that we always believed that the network data was the single source of truth. And I could talk all day probably about packet brokering and FPGAs and ASICs and all of the ways that we have sought to make sure that we do that as losslessly as possible. But the whole premise was that over time we realized that it was time to add in the middle part of our triangle here. Because even though we have all of the packets, we have the analysis, we're sending that out to many tools, different types of tools, security tools, which I think was a couple of comments that Kevin made, but it could be any number of analysis components. And we had the thought to add in our own analytics. So to not only take that single source of truth and all of the packets without loss and send them to our own products. And that's obviously been over a number of years, and most recently with the cStor S family, which we were evaluating through this test report. So the idea was that we would take that single source of truth, we'd add the analytics and the packet capture, obviously, and that would allow you, the customer, at the top there, the little brain, to be able to make the best business decisions. Now, business decisions is likely to include understanding issues in the network, being able to make numerous recommendations through our partners who are doing security analytics or network analytics, etc. And the point was that the cStor S would add to that visual so that you're able to make the best business decisions possible. So let's look at this kind of range of products that we have today. So we go all the way from the taps to the cClear, which was mentioned earlier. And ultimately, we're focused today in terms of this middle part, the cStor family especially. We obviously have the same on cloud, which I'll refer to again on the next page. But the spirit is that cPacket is here to help you understand your network from an observability perspective across all infrastructure types. And so that's why we have the cStor here in the middle. And we have a range of models, obviously. We referred to the 100S in the test report, but we go all the way down to the 10S and everything in between. So let's look at where this would physically fit in your hybrid infrastructure. Well, as you see here on the left-hand side or the left half of the screen, we've got a data center, could be a colo, whatever it might be. The point being is you probably have a very complex switching infrastructure, and you can tap or use span ports, many links in your network that go through your cView, which is obviously designed in a kind of packet brokering perspective. Once again, that's probably a little bit of a simplistic way of expressing it, but obviously our focus isn't on the cView today. And then you would send all of those packets, duplicate those packets, replicate them up to the tool rail. And one of those tools is the cStor, which is obviously the purpose of today's conversation. In the right-hand side, you can see the same diagram, but for cloud. Many of you are probably running extensive cloud infrastructures, as I mentioned earlier, and with the cView V, the cStor V, and the cClear V, you're able to bring together that comprehensive picture of your entire infrastructure. And once again, we're going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. Okay, so I'm proud to be able to put this slide up. Some of you who have maybe existing customers of ours or have seen a slide similar to this in the past, but I wasn't able to put that Tolly certified logo until today. So I'm really excited to be able to have that added to our slide here. And as I mentioned before, we go all the way from 10 gigabits per second, now validated, up to 100 gigabits per second capture in the overall system. Now that includes data compression as an example, right? So that we're able to get additional leverage on the storage capacity. As I say, the 288 terabytes as well as the 1.6 petabytes, really do allow you to have, that 2 petabytes of real storage, and with additional compression technologies, you can get that a little bit more, obviously. We include fast querying with flow indexing. And as Kevin mentioned, that's really about trying to make the data available immediately, particularly if you're having an issue or there may be an attack or something of that type. You need to not wait. You need to be able to see those packets and that data, the metadata in the cClear. You need to see that as quickly as possible. Low latency analysis and precision timestamping, that's probably a whole webinar in itself. But the idea there is that we're able to either add timestamps or to be able to leverage the timestamps that have been added to the packets as they're being received. As mentioned several times, I'll try not to repeat myself too many, data porting to third-party or custom analytics and security tools is actually really important to us. And it's certainly something that our customers appreciate, because once again, we have the brokers to send them to the tools in the first place, or obviously you can access all of those packets using API calls, etc., which allows an easy integration to many and numerous tools. The elastic scaling of storage, the CES or extensible, cPacket extensible storage devices are certainly a helpful size. They go from small to all the way to the 1.6 petabytes, allowing customers to be able to design the system around the amount of storage that they really want to have, or the longevity of that storage. I think it's pretty obvious, though, at 100 gig full rate capture, clearly any storage system is going to be stretched pretty quickly. But obviously, that's probably not terribly common. You're likely to have bursts. You're likely to have peaks and troughs, allowing the extensible storage system to really help making sure that you have plenty of storage available. The Wireshark support I'll talk about again in a second, but clearly that is important. We've all probably used Wireshark, any of us who've come from a network engineering background, and I'm sure many on this webinar today come from exactly that background, and you probably even still have Wireshark installed on your laptops, or maybe even a home computer possibly, depending on how enthusiastic you are. But having that available inside the system is really useful. I can search, do my searches inside the box, and I can immediately see them in a Wireshark-like interface. And as we've mentioned, centrally managed through a cClear integrated with the cView to create that unified picture. Now, it could be the case, and maybe this is going to be a question that'll come up in the chat, so please feel free to remember to add questions. But the point being is that the packet broker, obviously we believe ours is a great solution for the packet broker, but you may already have packet broker kind of systems already in place, and that's great. And we are able to connect into those just purely as a data stream, and that's something that we've recently had validated by a number of partners, and be happy to tell you all about those if you'd like to reach out. Okay, a little bit more, a little bit of an eye chart, and I apologize for that, so we won't kind of go through this too much in detail. But the spirit here is that the cStor S is a comprehensive, highly performant, and feature-rich platform. Whether it's lossless capture, as we've been demonstrating, whether it be TCP or flow analytics, comprehensive, I should probably have added there, TCP and flow analytics, market data support, maybe if you're coming from a kind of financial kind of background, etc. And the point being is that we have multi-port capture, we have compression, we have BPF filters if you are so keen, or the cPacket packet filter, time stamping, Wireshark, as I've mentioned, 100 gig capture, which once again confirmed by our partners at the Tolly Group, and things like CES and the self-encrypting drives. Now, self-encrypting drives is an important area, which once again is probably also a webinar in its own right. We have many folks who want to make sure that the data that we capture is encrypted at all times in their environment, so that in the event of something happening to that system, that no one is able to access any potential private information. So we have that option available, and obviously depends on the particular model. Happy to talk to you more about that afterwards. Packet replay is an exciting feature that we've recently added to the platform, and that's about replaying the packets as they were received. So that's exciting, not just from a kind of a sequence perspective, but also based on time, based on the timestamps. Protocol analytics, something that very happy to talk about as well. Cloud connectors is coming soon to really extend that storage capability. And obviously we have a range of support levels based on your needs as an organization. Okay, so let's just sum this up in a few slides, and we can jump into the questions. 100 gig capture sustained with the 100S and the CES combined. Really excited to be able to say that. Data encryption at rest, as I just mentioned, the self-encrypting drive option is very important for many of our customers. Sustained performance with the simultaneous indexing and fast querying. I think that's really, really useful. As Kevin was saying, you don't want to have to pause or stop capturing to allow you to do investigation. That's bad. So we are able to do both of those at the same time. We try to keep our licensing and tiering as simple as possible. Yeah, we do have at least options in that space, but once again, trying to keep things as straightforward as possible. Cloud connectors coming shortly, and ultimately delivering that full stack observability platform for a true hybrid infrastructure. So that's great. That's the cStor S. That's part of our story as a company. But what are we doing just as cPacket? What are our kind of goals? How are we trying to help you? Well, ultimately, it's about reducing service outages. I'd love to be able to say eliminating service outages, but I don't suppose any of us on this call today are that naive. The point being is that there often are outages, unforeseen challenges. The bottom line is let's reduce that as much as possible by making the data available, looking at baselining, understanding the trends over time, trying to track down which machines are causing the problems in your infrastructure. Let's work together to be able to do that with all of our products and our partners who are providing additional tooling. Strengthen cybersecurity. This is absolutely vital. Now, we are not a security company. We don't claim to be. However, we do provide the data that allows our partners in the NDR space or the IDS, whatever security aspect, to be able to provide the best visibility and understanding of the environment, so that allows you, the end user in this case, to wait and to be able to rely on their tooling and our infrastructure to be able to have that strengthening cybersecurity posture. And thirdly, it's really ultimately about accelerating that incident response. And maybe there's an aspect of the previous two circles that feed into that. But obviously, every time we get a phone call from a real end user that's having a problem, that's not a good day. if we can spot things in advance, or at least respond very quickly with reports and understanding to be able to identify very quickly where the particular issue might be, that's a really useful and a good day. So this is what cPacket's for. I'm sure you can resonate well with each of these circles. And once again, as I've said before, I would be happy to talk to any of you about this in the future. Okay, as Kevin mentioned, the report is available. We're excited. It's available on the Tolly website. It's also available on the cPacket website for free. If you scan that QR code, even now while we're talking, if you've got this on a big screen on your desk, you can use that QR code, and it'll take you right to the page, and or there's a URL there, and you can look that up. So it's very exciting to be able to talk about these things. Similarly, if you'd like to know more about cPacket, maybe you came to listen about the Tolly report and you're interested in some of the other things that we're doing, some of the data sheets possibly of the products, or understanding how cPacket could help you and your challenges or problems, we'd love to be able to talk. If you jump onto that website there, you'd be able to reach out to us via the contact form, and we'll very quickly give you a call and talk you through what we're doing. So I would just like to say thanks again to Kevin. Really appreciate his diligence and his team's diligence in producing the report that we're able to talk about today. And thank you very much for listening and participating in this event. So as I say, I think we're now going to jump over to the Q&A. So thank you very much for your time.